Mystery, intrigue, suspense, they are very, very quality buzzwords in our industry. It makes you lean in. But all I got to do is tell you right now, I got 5 teams I have no clue what to expect from this fall. And it's March in college football. That means spring practice, but we already are circling some mystery teams for 2022. And I want to go around the clock here and I want to hit 5 of them right quick. And I want to ask you, if you have any answers, if you think you've got these teams figured out, be my guest. Let me know. Let's start with Michigan. Michigan obviously has been in the news a lot because Jim Harbaugh wanted the Minnesota job, didn't get the Minnesota job. He's back. You know all that. What we don't know is how's that going to impact Michigan moving forward? By the way, this is not some downtrodden, underachieving program relative to expectation anymore. They're fresh off a Big Ten championship. They're fresh off their first ever college football playoff appearance. But yet, if you were to suggest to me they got nothing to worry about, the only way Michigan definitively has nothing to worry about is if Jim Harbaugh is an alien. You know, because if he's human and he has human nature and characteristics about himself and the entire program's made up of flesh and blood human beings, yeah, I'm certainly not saying that they're in a big mess or anything like that. But yes, they have things to potentially be concerned with. Not the least of which is losing the OC and losing the DC and having a head coach jumping back in after sitting on the sidelines for 30 minutes. Look, you got to re-stretch. You go work out at the gym. You go sit down and start talking to someone for 30 minutes. You don't just ease back into it. You got to stretch yourself out a little bit. Well, here was what I was talking about when Harbaugh did not get the Vikings job and he came back to Michigan. What I said that I didn't think was going to be an issue, but we can never rule it out, is the Dan Mullen effect. Dan Mullen, a year before at the Florida program, tries to get out. And no one in the NFL would have Dan Mullen. And so he comes back, but he never came back. Now, I think we can all understand there's a whole lot different attachment between Harbaugh and Michigan than there was with Mullen and Florida. But yet, you can never fully rule it out. You just never know how this stuff's going to play out. Again, human beings are involved here. So Michigan, you know, before I even talk about J.J. McCarthy, before I even talk about replacing coordinators, I'm talking about really 50,000-foot type stuff right now. Speaking of coaching drama, if you want to call it that, let's go to Auburn. Do you know what to expect? I'm talking to you in Chambers County and Lee County and Russell County down there in what would that be, East Central Alabama. Do you know what to expect from your Auburn Tigers this year? How's this supposed to play out? And for me, just sitting here up in Nashville, how am I supposed to judge that man, Brian Harsin? If you're watching on YouTube right now, we're just looking at B-roll of Brian Harsin. How am I supposed to judge him? How am I supposed to have an unobstructed view of Auburn football right now? Unobstructed means there is no external outside force reaching in there and clogging things up. Well, we're past that point now. It's happened. So we've had the obstruction already. Now, hey, Brian Harsin, you're supposed to saddle it right back up. Get back on that horse, young man, and ride into the fall. And you got Bama, Georgia, LSU, A&M to deal with, Arkansas, Ole Miss. You got to deal with them every year. Oh, and by the way, we tried to oust you, but we didn't find quite enough. So for the time being, don't get too attached, but for the time being, you're still the head coach here. Point being, even if everything's on the up and up, it's hard to win in the SEC West. How am I supposed to know whether Brian Harsin is faltering or whether he was given a no-win situation and the hand that was dealt to him was terminally ill to begin with? I have no idea, but then I look at their schedule, and like I just said, I'm not going to say this later, but when we do the That Guy segment, there is a that guy out there in college football that would look at this schedule, Auburn schedule, and they would criticize it because they're going to play Mercer. You know, they would ignore that got Penn State coming to town, got LSU going to go back-to-back Georgia, Ole Miss, Arkansas then, still got A&M. Oh, by the way, you got Bama at the end of the year. Forget about all that. This schedule is soft because you play Mercer. Anyway, he's got to run through all that. I think this is the toughest job in America because of the combination of the external factors and the schedule. And then we look at quarterback at Auburn. I think it's hazy at best right now. Zach Calzada transferred in from Texas A&M. Robbie Ashford, I don't think a lot of you guys know, he transferred there from Oregon. So there was kind of a straight-up one-for-one switch. Bo Nix goes to Eugene. Robbie Ashford comes to Auburn. TJ Finley's still there. He was there last year. And Davis is a quarterback that was a true freshman last year. I like his skill set a whole lot. I don't know necessarily how well they think he fits with their offense down there. I don't know what to expect from Auburn. We got a little time to figure it out. I don't think the answer will become any more clear until they tee it up this fall. What about Texas? Bo Davis told you. Steve Sarkisian told you. If you watched Texas football last year at all, your own eyeballs probably told you. A lot of things need to change with this program, and 1 year under Steve Sarkisian didn't do it, nor did any rational person expect for that to do it. But now here we are, we're about to enter spring of year 2, and when I referenced Bo Davis, you remember that epic team bus rant that was recorded on cell phone video, and you heard him say what everyone else had felt, maybe in a little bit more animated fashion, but there were a lot of people here, a lot of people in this program, a lot of players in this roster who don't need to be here, and then we got to obviously replace those spots with guys who do fit the mold, characteristics and critical traits that we're looking for. Well, they, to their credit, overturned as much of this roster so far as they possibly could, still got the post-spring transfer portal window, who knows what they do there. But Texas, along with another team that I'm going to talk about in a second, Texas football is one of the great unknowns, not only in the Big 12 and in their own backyard, but in the national landscape this upcoming year. Because think about what you do have. You still have a reasonably good talent roster, much improved from this time last year. You also have the net positive of the program representing more of your thumbprint if you're this coaching staff in year 2. And you casually went and got Quinn Ewers, who I know is only one person. Therefore, when you look at a list of notable additions, he's just one line. If you add a transcendently good talent at the quarterback position, that's all he is right now. We have not seen him do anything. But if you add that talent, that potential, and it pans out, he's worth way more than just one line. I mean, that's a total game changer. Like, what was Bryce Young for Alabama? What was Trevor Lawrence for Clemson? So Quinn Ewers has all the measurables and all the physical characteristics to make you think he could project as a very, very upper tier to elite quarterback. If they've got all that, it's the definition of a wild card team. Then you look at their schedule. How about week 2? Oh, I think a lot of you probably haven't looked this far ahead yet. Texas welcomes in the University of Alabama in week 2. So Bama's going to Austin, first time. Stats and Info can look that up. I don't know when the last time was Bama played in Austin. But then they've got the usual Big 12 conference schedule. While it lasts, enjoy it while it lasts out there. Save those ticket stubs. So Texas is a great unknown in the Big 12 and beyond. Let's kick it over to the Atlantic coast for the final 2. I mean, this one specifically to me was a crushing disappointment this last year. North Carolina, a lot was expected, and remember what the whole talking point was. It was North Carolina needs Clemson to trip up. If Clemson trips up, that's the predominant favorite there, Clemson. But if they trip up, boy, Mack Brown in North Carolina, Sam Howell pulling the trigger back there behind center, they could make a move. Well, Clemson had the down year that North Carolina needed them to have, and they were still nowhere to be seen. And it wasn't because they had catastrophic injury at quarterback. They just weren't as good as a lot of us, myself included, thought they would be. Having said that, spring brings new hope. I want to encourage you, if you even have a passing interest in North Carolina football, InsideCarolina.com, which is our North Carolina site, probably has about the most detailed spring practice reports you will ever see. I don't know that Mack Brown's coaching staff has as much detail on their roster and their team right now through a few days of spring practice as the guys over there on Inside Carolina. So great intel. I mean, phenomenal intel, almost like scouting report level intel. They went 6-7 last year. It capped with an embarrassing loss for them to South Carolina in the bowl game, but they were 0-6 away from home last year. It's a stat I'm sure they've thrown around a lot. I don't know that the nation is necessarily aware that's how the losses shook out. But the quarterback battle, they have one there now. You're not going to enter into preview magazine season and have this fixture in Tar Heel blue at quarterback, and then there's some other satellite pieces we got to fit in around him. No, you got Jacoby Criswell and Drake May, who was a kid of the 5-star variety they took from Alabama once upon a time. They've got a talent roster. This is why I keep my eye on North Carolina. Anytime you have expectation for a team that has really good to high-level talent, top to bottom, and then they don't pan out, everyone's tendency is to sell. And everyone's tendency is to get mad because that team didn't make me look smart, and so I'm going to totally sell them down the river. Well, then, TCU's done this before. The next year is the year you want to watch them, because the next year is when nothing's expected, and all of a sudden, boom, they pop 1 year after they were supposed to. Speaking of the ACC, I'll wrap it up with the Clemson Tigers. There are obviously 2 drastically different ways that this can go for Clemson. 2 totally drastic different paths this can take. 2021, though, what interests me about Clemson is everyone, well, I'll say most people, are looking back on 2021, and they're saying that was a down year for Clemson. I will admit it did not match what the last several years had been, but a lot of times when people are saying you had a down year, that means it's out of what the norm of expectation was. And then the follow-up, kind of the connotation behind it all is, and they'll be back. There'll be a bounce back. And I've got to tell you, while I'm certainly not selling Clemson stock or anything like that, I don't automatically assume that. A lot of people are assuming last year was this minor setback for a major comeback, and if I'm a Clemson fan, of course I would feel that way. I would just blindly feel that way. But I'm looking around and I'm asking, okay, short of a very workable schedule, short of that, I'm talking about the quality of team they have independent of what their schedule looks like, what would give me supreme confidence that a bounce back year is just inevitable? Because then you start tacking in that they got to replace Tony Elliott, offensive coordinator. They have to replace Brent Venables, who went to Oklahoma as the head coach, defensive coordinator. I think it sounds really good if you want to build the case against Clemson to say they lost the OC and the DC and then the AD. The fact of the matter is, Neff, I think the guy's name is, who's the athletic director there, Graham Neff, he had been groomed for a long time. So I think the loss of the athletic director is negligible here, but the on-field losses, yeah, you got that to worry about. And also, quarterback didn't exactly light the world on fire for them last year, and it was supposed to. So now, they bring in a big-time talent as a true freshman quarterback to battle with DJ Uiagalelei. Now, a lot of people are going to have takes on that. A lot of people are going to have takes on what kind of competition level will there be there. That's why spring is so intriguing there. But it's a major litmus test. This feels so weird to say for a coach who already has 2 national championships. But if you really think about it, if you wanted to be a detractor, and I'm not trying to play that role, but if you really wanted to play the role of Dabo Swinney detractor, you could sit there and you could say, yeah, Dabo won 2 national championships, but he did it with that coaching staff, which even you would have to credit him that he put together. But here's how you would make that sound. I'm not of this opinion. I'm playing devil's advocate right now. You would say, all right, well, now he's going to have to prove that his way works because his way is what he's leaning on. When he promoted from within, both of these coordinators, he promoted from within. They didn't have a search. I believe I was reading Grace Rayner's stuff over on The Athletic. He was quoted as saying it took about 20 seconds for him to make the decisions to promote from within, both on the offensive and defensive side. That's cool. He knows his program intimately better than any of us, including me, ever will. But that is where the litmus test comes. Because now you find out whatever Dabo Swinney's way is, whatever his methodology is, it's going to get put to the test this year. They had the down year last year, remember. They don't have room for another down year. Everyone's expecting the bounce back. So Michigan, Auburn, Texas, North Carolina, Clemson, those are 5 of my mystery teams, not bounce back teams. A lot of people are going to call them bounce back teams. They're just mysteries to me. We'll see.